Good day and welcome to another episode of Bucket List Living with Brad Norwood. I'm your host, Brad Norwood, and with me today, one of the most, how do I even describe Arthur Greeno? Distinctive guest, probably that we will ever have on the show, creative guest that I'll probably ever have on the show. My friend Arthur Greeno, multi-unit owner of Chic Fil A in Tulsa, Oklahoma, also a Guinness World Record holder. And we're going to talk about that today. Arthur, thanks for joining me. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So, Arthur, we got connected about 2 or 3 years ago through a mutual friend, Rob. And Rob, hey, if you're listening, thanks for tuning in. We met at a Waffle House, one of the places that I'm known for taking my children. I wish it would have been a Chick-fil-A, to be honest with you, but I'm known for taking my children to Waffle House and having our good old dad talks. We met at Waffle House and we started talking about experiences that I provide through DreamIT, but also experiences and leadership that you provide through your group, Executive Experiences. Tell us a little bit about Executive Experiences.
Sure. Well, Executive Experiences, actually, it was kind of spawned off of high-level achievers, business owners. You know, when you get with high-level people, you generally have conversations that other people don't have. Just whether it's at Waffle House or whether it's on the boat or wherever it may be, you end up talking about things like, hey, who do you provide insurance for your team for? You know, that's not a conversation that every person has, you know, or, you know, maybe even investing. Hey, the stock market's down right now. Are you investing in things? You know, I mean, you can have that conversation with anyone, but there's just interesting conversations that high-level people end up having that other people may not understand or are involved with. So, you know, some friends and I said, well, let's create something that puts us together on a regular basis, that we have fun with, that we can engage with, that we can have, you know, do something unique. Well, I tend to be a little bit creative. And so we said, let's make it where it's just really cool, fun things. And so we sat down and brainstormed and said, what could those fun things look like? So, because we did, you know, people were like, well, is this a networking group? And I'm like, well, yes and no. But one of the things I found about high-level leaders is one of the things we're not very good at is designating time to go do stuff. I mean, like, relax and engage. You know, some people may go fishing, some people may go, I mean, a lot of high-level leaders, their enjoyment is business, but yet disengaging from business and taking that time for reflection is so important. And so we said, hey, let's create something to kind of force that with the guys. And so that's kind of what we did. And so it is all guys. They're good, solid Christian guys. There is a vetting process. Now, first of all, it's not just about guys. We've actually talked about doing executive experiences with women, but one of the problems we run into is we actually need a woman to lead it. Because if Arthur leads it, you know, I don't know exactly what girls like to do. I mean, I know what my wife likes to do, and she's like, hey, I'd like to go on this trip with you or do this, but yet there's a lot of gaps in there. And so a lot of people ask, how come you don't have women in your group? And it's like, well, because no woman has stepped up to lead it. We are more than happy to, you know, give it to them, to share with them. But it's one of those that let's do things that other people don't. And so it's like we've done some things like last fall we went to NASA. Jim Bridenstine actually was a congressman for Oklahoma. I got to know him, and him and I actually were at lunch one time and we're joking about traveling to space. And he was telling me about all the stuff that Tesla is doing, and so I said, well, what will it take for me to get to the moon? So I was actually going to have that conversation, and it was funny because we were just joking about it, and then we left the meeting, and a couple of years later, he got nominated as the head over at NASA. So we reached out to him this last fall, and they brought us out for a launch that they had out there, and we got to experience that from the NASA side and got behind the scene tours of where they build the things and on the platforms. And but we try to set up things that the usual person, the normal person just walks in, wouldn't have access to. Now, and it doesn't mean because we're special, it's because we ask the right questions and say, well, can we do this? You know, can we blow things up? Okay, if we can't blow things up, how do we find out who we need to get to blow things up?
Right.
We actually went out to the dump, believe it or not. We went out to the dump a couple of years ago, and we talked to the people that own it, and they actually let us drive these pieces of equipment. They were like millions and millions of dollars. And so we brought out a couple of cars that our kids had that were no longer working. We got to run them over with these big rigs and crush them. And so, of course, we kind of smelled horrible when it was done, but it was a unique experience. All the guys, believe it or not, these are all guys that are they have a lot of net worth, and they're out there driving these big vehicles around the dump place. So it was really cool. So that's kind of what we do with them. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you actually did that the weekend after you and I met at the Waffle House, because I remember how excited you were telling me about going and playing Tonka toys. And then it was about a month later that I was in Las Vegas and visited a business called Dig This, where you get to go out and drive big, heavy machinery. It's a great team building activity. It was really cool to kind of put that all full circle. But you guys have also, you've been on the ice for the Tulsa minor league hockey team, driven the Zamboni, gone out and done some slap shots, really cool stuff. And really what your group does is, as you mentioned, I use the line all the time, you guys take time out of life to spend time on life and do that as a group together, right? What does that do for not only the culture of those guys that are in your group, but as they leave and their culture and their business elsewhere?
Well, for one, it helps guys know they're not alone. You know, as leaders, a lot of times what ends up happening is we feel like we're doing this alone, and we're not. But we're so busy leading that we're not going to take time out of our day to go sit down and kind of vent to someone or share, hey, here's where I'm at. And so, but when you're on a fishing trip with them, or when you're, we like to try to schedule some things that some of them are close and some of them are like, the perfect scenario for us is to go to a place that's about an hour away, put all the guys in cars together, have them carpool. You'd be amazed at the conversations that come up, just because you're sitting there going, hey, I'm dealing with this problem right now. And they're like, oh yeah, I dealt with that a year ago. Here's what we did. And so just that time alone, you're not alone, but just that time away doing that just opens up the conversations. Then you walk back, or when you get back to work, you know, you had a good experience. Like, for example, this last weekend, we actually went bow fishing. Never been bow fishing. In fact, if you look at my forearm, it's all bruised up. It's horrible. Because I'm not a smart bowman or archer, I guess. And so, but I got some fish. And so while we're on the boats, or while we're on the way down there, on the way back, we're actually able to have some conversations about how are things going, how is COVID, how are you overcoming with COVID? And it's interesting to me to hear how I deal with it at Chick-fil-A is different than maybe some of the other guys deal with it. And they've asked me questions of how are you dealing with this, or how are you compensating for that, or what are you doing to make your team feel special, or whatever it may be. Those are not normal conversations. You don't normally get around a round table and say, okay, let's talk about how do we make our team feel special. But when you're on a boat or somewhere else doing something, the conversation may come up. We basically provide a landscape to be, you know, to relax, have fun, let your guard down, and then, oh yeah, I had a question about this, I need to ask some of the guys, and you walk away with a lot of knowledge and connections that you never knew you would have.
Yeah, an amazing bond that forms there as well. Just the trust. I've been fortunate enough, you've invited me over to a business underground at the pizzeria, and just even incredible the experience you provide in the invitation there. For those that don't know, that I got a card in the mail from Arthur, and it was blank. All that was on it was my name on the outside, but inside was a packet of a code ring and a blacklight flashlight. Sure enough, the card, the invitation, was printed in invisible ink. Had to use the code ring and the blacklight to figure out where the heck we were going to meet. And just providing that experience up front, it begins the experience, right? You know, as an experienced guy, that 80% of our experience that we have is mental. It's only 20% of it is actual physical. And so what we go through mentally, and you start that process with the invitation, that was really cool. So you talked about how do you make people, that you get asked the question, how do you make people feel special at Chick-fil-A? And how do they make their customer feel special. I want to ask you that question too. What is that? How do you make your employees feel special? Because a lot of people think that incentives have to be these big, extravagant trips and things, executive experiences per se that we do. What do you do as the leader at Chick-fil-A? How do you make your team feel special?
Well, I mean, let's just start with even ourselves. What makes us feel special? And when when you start really looking in the mirror and going, this would make me feel special. Oh, it'd be nice if I got a card in the mail. It's the exact same for your team. I mean, they're going through the same thing that you are. And it's not, as a business owner or a leader in your organization, we're not above that. It all goes the same. Our employees want to feel special. And so, the basics, like for me at Chick-fil-A, and again, I'm going to use examples of what I do at Chick-fil-A because, well, that's what I do. And so
Sure.
You may be going, this doesn't apply to me. That doesn't work. I can't give away free chicken. I'm an insurance agent. I give away insurance. It's illegal, but there's things that we can figure out to do to make them feel special. I'm in my office at Chick-fil-A, and I literally have right here in this pile of stuff, a bunch of cards. This wasn't part of it. It just happens to be that that we had custom made. They're actually for a water park. And so, it's hot outside. Tulsa's kind of just opened up. So I'm actually giving my all my leadership some certificates that I bought for them to take their family and go to the water park, go cool off on a Sunday, of course, and go over there and cool off and relax with your family. I look for what are the needs that might be out there and how can I make them work for me. This is small. This card, it took a little bit of time, for us to make, but it's something for us to they want to know that we care. And True Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, he was one of my mentors, and I actually bought him at an auction once. I paid 10 grand for it, bought him for the weekend. It was the best 10 grand I've ever spent, I'm telling you. And one of the things that he used to tell people is, if you want to know if someone needs encouragement, all you got to look for is to see if they're breathing. And if they're breathing, you know that they need encouragement. And that's so true. And so for me at the store, my job here is to look around and say, how can I meet their needs? What are their needs? Is their need, their need may not be to go to the water park, but it is to feel that they're working their tail off. And at Chick-fil-A, we literally have masks everywhere. And so we're wearing our masks, we're wearing gloves, we're taking our gloves off every 30 minutes, we're washing our hands every 30 minutes, we're washing down, everything and we're going through the extreme, as those of you who've seen the Chick-fil-A's know what we're doing. Well, you know what? I want to make sure that they know that I appreciate that they're doing that. So like on a regular basis, we actually, since our lobby's closed, we went to our condiment display and we took all the condiments out and we fill it like twice a month. We'll go through and we'll fill it with all their favorite things, with candy bars, with potato chips, with candy, with all kinds of just stuff, just to fill it, just as a, hey guys, thanks for being out there on the front lines. You're out there taking care of the business and greeting with the customers, and some customers are very appreciative of it, and other customers are a little more high maintenance.
Sure.
So it is what it is. But the big thing for us is, as leaders, is to look for opportunities to serve them. And if we have the attitude of serving them, there's no way that if you are serving your team on a regular basis, that they're not going to reciprocate that with your guests. And I think where a lot of companies miss it is they say, oh, we want to have a great guest experience, but yet back behind the house, we're not doing that. And so whatever happens behind the closed doors is what's going to happen in front of the doors. So if companies can realize that, then they'll realize real quickly that if their attitude is to serve their team, then they're going to serve their guests. And that's what's going to create culture. Culture is what you do on a regular basis over and over, not simply a one-hit wonder that, oh yeah, I did this one time for them. They should be reciprocating that.
All right, Arthur. So we had a little technical difficulty there. I apologize for that. But you were talking about engaging in encouragement with your employees, and you mentioned that culture is not what you do just once, but it's what you do over and over. And so I know you're a guy that gets and totally understands that there's an ROI to that. But do you actually track the ROI of that?
Let me come at this a different direction. I don't know if I necessarily track the ROI on it, but I do budget for it. So
Gotcha.
That is one thing that I do. I actually set aside, and again, when I first started with Chick-fil-A, a lot of you may not know my story, but I mean, I had one of the worst stores in the chain, and we were living on a shoestring budget. It took 4 years for me, even with Chick-fil-A, to start making money. And I mean, our volume was one that we would do $20,000 in a month. And so I was watching every nickel and every dime, but it was always important to say, you know, to figure out what that is and say, hey, I'm going to spend $100 on my team, whatever that may be, you know, and it could be 500, it could be 1,000, whatever it is for you guys. But when you start designating that, and then you can start thinking through the process on how that's going to look, I think that you'll be shocked, because it doesn't take a lot of money. I mean, I send out a birthday card to every employee for their birthday every time it's their birthday. We send out a card and we make a box for them every time for their anniversary, you know, and it's not very expensive. In fact, I'm actually at my restaurant right now, back up there in the corner. If they see all those little boxes way up there in the corner.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yep, those are all anniversary boxes. And so we actually had these custom anniversary boxes, cost $3 to make, but we put a t-shirt in there, just a little card from me that says, thank you so much. And we write on the outside of it. I mean, it's something small, but it makes them feel special. And so, is there a return on investment? My average employee, one time we ran the numbers, and they've been with me for an average of 6 years. And so, and in the food industry, that's pretty good. So
that's huge.
So
I've got to say that's better than pretty good.
Yeah.
That's got to be huge in the food industry.
Yeah, so I have employees that have been with me for 18 years. I have employees that their parents worked for me years ago, and so it's one of those that it is an investment. It's an investment of time and energy and money, and that's where most people get hung up on. Oh my gosh, I can't afford that. I don't have the money that Chick-fil-A has. Use what you have. If all you have is time, then use that time. Make a phone call, send them a text, whatever it may be. But during COVID, one of the things that I talk to them about regularly is make sure that we are communicating with our team. Does our team feel secure? Are we checking on that? How's things going in your family? You know, I learned some interesting things about some of my team that where they were struggling, and it wasn't where you would expect it. It's, you know, it doesn't take much. So
right, yeah, the littlest things can go the longest miles, right? I know you're an example of that. As I've gotten to know you over the years, and we've met personally and talk in our conversations, but also just following you on social media. You're one of the best follows on social media, simply because, in my opinion, you live the bucket list life. You do crazy things. You know that life's too short to take it so seriously. But your compassion and genuine care about people, especially kids and in your community, speak volumes. Tell us about Tulsa POP Kids, the charity that you're involved in, and you're the owner of a Batmobile and now a mystery machine. Tell the people about this.
Yeah, so I'm a true nerd at heart. Let's just start with that. But I'm always looking for that fun thing. I mean, what excites us? And so for me, I'm a big nerd. I struggled with school. And so comics was actually the way that I would read a lot of comics. And that's how I kept my reading level up. And what a lot of people don't know is comics are written in college level reading, which is just surprising. I mean, there's not a one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish superhero comic, and then one that's a different level. It's all the same level. So when kids are picking up comic books, they're reading college level reading. That was, for me growing up, I had a lot of things going on in my family, but the comic books is what I would go towards as far as picking up and reading, because they were entertaining. They had superpowers. I mean, that's cool, right? You know, so that's kind of where I grew up, and so for me, some friends and I got together and we're talking about some different things, and you know, what is out there? What is a need that we can meet? And we created Tulsa POP Kids, and so our whole mission is to advance literacy and education through pop culture and entertainment. That's very broad. And so to sum it up, what we do is, a simple version is, we collect comics. We clean them up, sift through them, remove all the pornography comics, which you'd be surprised how many there are. It's crazy, but we'll go through them, and then we'll have people dress up in characters, and they'll go to the children's hospital and visit the children in the hospital. Currently, there's it's kind of like the projects. It's also Housing Authority. Because of COVID, they actually, a lot of their community programs are shut down for the summer. And so these kids are literally not reading, not being educated. And so they reached out and said, hey, what can you put together for us? So we put together a bunch of packets that we took out to them that some of these kids are starting up summer school, and now they have their reading material is actually comics to be reading. The chances are that they're gonna be reading these comics more than they would some other books. And it was kind of funny because they sent me pictures of these kids, and they were, I mean, as soon as they got them, they ripped everything open and they ran over there to the side and started reading these comics. And so, that's kind of what we do. But the thing is that if we're going to do it, let's do it and have fun. You know, if I'm going to be involved in a board or be on a board, I want to make sure I have fun with it. That's one of the things that a lot of people ask me all the time is, you know, hey, I want to join a board so I can get connected and I can network and be in the community, because that's one of the ways to get connected, right? Well, don't join a board that sucks. You know, if you're on a board that's boring, and I've been on some of them, I'm rolling my eyes going, oh my gosh, why am I here? This is not fun. Someone just reached out to me on LinkedIn recently, and they said, hey, can you join our board? We could use your, you know, what you could bring to the table. And I just had to be upfront with them and say, I'm sorry, but that's not where my heart is. And you're not going to get all of me because I want to be doing other things. And unfortunately, what you guys do does not excite me. And so now I'm not saying it's bad. It was very important, you know, what their role is. It's just not for Arthur Greeno. But for somebody else, you know, that could be their thing. So if you're going to join a board, make sure you join one that you're passionate about. Like if you put Arthur on the one for like the ballet, it's all over, folks. It's horrible. I mean, that's not my thing, you know? And so that wasn't the one that called, by the way. They didn't invite me. So probably because they saw my Facebook and they're like, yeah, this isn't the guy. So, but that's how we created Tulsa POP Kids. And so, so we figured, and as a big thinker, it's one of those, if we're already going to go to the children's hospitals, let's go ahead and go to the children's hospitals in a Batmobile. Or in this case, I bought this monster. When I say monster, I mean, it's a monster truck.
Yes,
it's a mystery machine, and it's a monster truck. And of course, in typical Arthur fashion, I know Brad saw this. I know he was laughing at it. You know where I'm going on this, right?
I do. This is a great story.
So I get this monster truck, and I had it delivered over to Chic Fil A, and I got out there. We backed it off the trailer. This thing's huge, and I thought, I look at the dials, and of course the dials on it don't work. So I thought I better go put gas in if I'm ever going to do anything with this. So I drive it to the gas station, which is right across the street. So I drove through the intersection, stopped it, filled it up with gas. While I'm there, like 9 people are over there. Can I take a picture of it? Can I take a picture? And I realized real quickly, holy moly, this is going to be crazy. I'm driving it back over to Chick-fil-A, and it breaks down in the middle of the intersection. I mean, it couldn't have broken down more in the middle of the intersection. I mean, it was right there in the middle of the intersection. And when I had to crawl down, I mean, I literally had to crawl down the tires in the middle of the intersection. So then I go over to the side, and next thing I know, the police show up. And I was fully expecting them to tow me because I didn't have insurance on it. I didn't have anything because I literally just got it. And so the policeman comes over, circles it, walks around it, and he could see that I was standing there off the side. Now, my wife happened to be coming through the intersection, and she comes through, and she is just laughing her head off. And so she actually does a video. She's just laughing hysterically at me. And we had to have it towed off. But the police officers, when they were asking me about, you know, do you have insurance? Do you have registration? I was like, no, I didn't have any of it because I literally just got it. And they, you know, they let me go, but they thought they were being punked. So apparently I was right on the border of the Broken Arrow Police Department and the Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department. And Tulsa, Oklahoma Police Department called Broken Arrow and said, hey, there's someone on your side of the line. And so, and that line was right in the middle. So he comes over and he's driving around and saying there's no one in it. And so he was like, I know that somebody was setting me up. There has to be a video camera around here somewhere. And so sure enough, it wasn't. And so we got it all fixed, and We got it towed over for Tulsa POP Kids. And then when my Batmobile guys got underneath it, and of course it didn't take much because it's a monster truck, right? So they could just walk underneath it. And they were like, "Hey, Arthur, you realize this thing's like tied together with rope?" And I was like, no, I didn't realize that. So they said, first of all, you're not allowed to drive it. And once we get done with the Batmobile over here, we're going to come over here and we'll fix this up for you so you can go do whatever you want with it. So it was kind of funny, but we figured if we're going to be going to the children's hospitals, if we're going to be going to the projects, let's load up that van, the Scooby-Doo van, with comics or with cosplayers or with graphic novels or whatever it may be. So some of our role is to help support other organizations in what they're trying to accomplish. Like if a PTA calls us and says, we're having a book fair, if you guys can come out with the Batmobile, we know we'll have more families come out to see the Batmobile and bring their kids, and their kids can get books. So that's kind of what we do with Tulsa POP Kid, but it's really about, let's have some fun with this.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's great. And I was following the story as you broke down and I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you if you were laughing. I know you found the humor in it. And to think that the cops thought that they might be getting punked, that brings a whole new light to the story. That's actually funny as well.
Yeah.
Because that is something that you would do sometime. I could see you doing that.
Yeah, I was accused of that. A lot of people said, this was just a PR stunt, wasn't it, Arthur? And I was like, you guys, I'm sorry. I just can't make this stuff up. I mean, that just happens. And so, like as you know, I have a pet lemur. And so, there's sometimes when I'll be traveling with him or something, and he'll do something crazy, and I'm just rolling my eyes going, you just can't make this up. No one's going to believe this. So.
Right. Well, and that's a great transition because I wanted to ask you about it's Zabu, right? I know you call him Boo.
Yeah.
You've got his own Facebook page for him. What in the world possessed you to want to have a lemur? That was a lifelong want of yours, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I wanted a monkey, and so when I was younger, I always wanted a monkey, and of course, like most people, my parents were like, "There's no way we're getting you a monkey," and they couldn't afford it. But it was a friend of mine has some lemurs, and he was they were doing something, and I said, "Can I?" I overheard one of his actually team members say, "Hey, I'm going to take the lemur home this weekend," and I was like, "Whoa, we get to have sleepovers with a lemur? I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? I mean, everybody." And so, and for me, my daughters were actually having a Girl Scout sleepover that night. So I was like, "Oh, let's just scare the tar out of them." And so I got this lemur. His name was Rascal, and I took him home. He was a different style of lemur, but he was still a lemur. And we took him home, and we let him, run around the house, and we had fun with him. And I was like, okay, this is the coolest pet ever. And so I was like, I would like to, have one. And I mentioned to him, and he said, next time, he said, I have a friend that's a breeder, and when she's breeding them, I'll give you a call. Well, 2 years later, he calls me and says, hey, were you serious about that lemur? And I was like, yeah. And so he kind of told me about it. And the funny thing is I called my wife, and I had this big speech of all these things, and I start going off on, we should get a lemur, we should do this, and they have a they have a ring-tailed lemur, and then they have a black and white ruffed, and I was just going on, and she goes, so you're getting a black and white ruffed one, right? And I just kept going on because I was all geared up, and I was like, wait, did you say, you didn't say no? And she's like, no, I didn't say no. She goes, but you're going to have to get the black and white ruff. Now, what I didn't know was the Girl Scouts had just done a project for my friend, actually, and they built a lemur cage. So part of the Girl Scout thing was they did all this research. They knew all about which lemurs are better, which ones are better for the house. And she said, if you're going to get one, you need to get the black and white ruffed one. So all I was focused on was, I was just hearing blah, 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 blah. All I heard was yes. Okay, and so I was in. So we got him. He's about 3 years old, and so he has his own personality. Yes, we did my daughter wanted to do a Facebook page, and so we said, well, why don't you do one for Zabu? Because, it's my young daughter. I really wasn't comfortable with her having a Facebook page, so I let her do one for Zabu, and so he has his own page, and we get on there, and we'll do little things here and there, but he's a joy to have. Sometimes he is like a child. We took them out yesterday. We had the monster machine towed to my church so they were having a car show. So we thought, all right, we'll take it out there. And so we were going to go out there, and yesterday was Father's Day. And so we thought, I was like, well, let's just bring Boo. And so I should have known, as soon as I walk out there with a lemur, everybody wants to touch him. And it's funny because my oldest son looked over and said, hey, Dad, it's probably time for us to take Boo home. He's about to have a high-speed come apart. And so that's a phrase that we use as parents. You know how you have young children and they're great, they're behaved well, you're out to lunch, and then there's that one moment that you're like, they're about to have a high-speed come apart. And all our friends knew that when we said, hey, we're about to have a high-speed come apart, it's time. Everyone knows it's time to wrap up. We're done. And it's just because you're dealing with a child. That's how it works. So know your children, know your lemurs, know your employees, get to know them all. And so last night, my son said he's about to have a high-speed come apart, Dad. And so we geared him up and we put him in the kennel and took him home. So, but he's a fun animal, but it's one of those that, the question I get asked is, does he poop all over the house? We have a giant cage in part of the house that we have him in most of the time. He sleeps next to me. I have a kennel next to me. He does not poop in his kennel. Which is awesome, but we don't just let him run all over. I mean, it's like having a 2-year-old that can jump 9 feet in the air. And so, if he smells something, he will jump up there and his tail will knock everything off the table. So we kind of have to make sure the house is picked up a little bit. No open glasses of anything sitting around, if he's going to be running around. So he is a blast, but some of it is about, we got one life to live, right? So what is keeping us from making it where it's just something that is remarkable, that it's something that we can remark about, something that we can that is Facebook worthy? And so our phone's ringing. My store will get it for me. So so what is it that we can post about? And so if we're not doing something that is post worthy or TikTok worthy or something like that, we probably need to evaluate, why are we doing what we're doing? So
Sure. Yeah. And that's, as you said, in your everyday life, at home with your family, on the road with your friends, and at work, right? Everything. I know that's one of your trademark phrases is be remarkable in everything that you do. And I appreciate that. And the L in the My Bucket List Life Plan stands for leave a legacy. And you are one of the people that I admire and in the legacy that you are leaving behind for your family. I know yesterday you spent an incredible Father's Day with your kids. You posted about it on Facebook. Share, Arthur, how you can go from Bible study time to blowing people's heads off.
Yeah, well, yeah. So my oldest son moved to Atlanta. He's doing an internship down there, and then one of my other sons moved to OU because he's in school. And so I have 6 kids and 2 vasectomies. We don't have time for all that, but it just doesn't surprise anyone that knows me, And so I got 4 boys, and they started up a Bible study. And so what they would do is on Sunday nights, they would get together and do the Bible study. Now, Mom and I had always kind of wondered, I wonder what they do. I wonder what they talk about. I mean, how does this look? But they started it up, and for Father's Day, they said, hey, Dad, would you like to join us for our Bible study and then play video games? Because what they do is they do their Bible study, and then they play video games. And so that's kind of the routine. So they said, Dad, we went ahead and we went and got an old game so that you would appreciate it. So they got Halo. And because I used to have parties, even at Chic Fil A, we would come in here and stay the night and hook up all these computers. This is old school, right? Hook up all these computers, and me and my employees would stay up all night long and play video games. And so we don't do that as much anymore, but because nowadays it's all, there's so much online available. This is before there was an online. And so Halo was one of those games we would play. And I got to tell you, yeah, they blew my head off a number of times. I am horrible at it now. And so so we played it for a while, but yes, I did post about it because, for my boys, I didn't tell them to have a Bible study. They said that they wanted to do this, and I got different ages of kids, and how they do I don't care how they do their Bible study. The fact that they're actually pausing their lives to set up those important things, which to them was, let's read the Bible together, let's pray for one another, let's pray for other needs, and then let's have some fun and blow people's heads off. So that's kind of what they did.
Yeah, and that's kind of you in a nutshell. You know, hey, let's get serious about our business for a minute. Let's see how we can help each other. And then, by golly, if it's boring, I'm not part of it. Let's make it some fun. And so, congratulations to you. You've got a remarkable family, and your leadership is second to none. And I appreciate your intentionality of not only pouring into others, but especially your family, because you're a great model for them. I want to thank you for doing that not only on behalf of them, but for others. So
thank you.
Just a great man, a great role model. So we mentioned it early in the show. It's in your profile on LinkedIn. We have to know about the Guinness Book of, what is your Guinness record?
So first of all of my records have been broken. So I guess I'm back to a normal guy again, but I do have a certificate that shows when I did it. So actually I have I set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest lemonade. I set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest sweet tea. And I was actually listed in the Ripley's, believe it or not, for the world's largest hand-spun milkshake. And so the hand-spun milkshake was actually the first one we did, and it was actually a dare. Somebody had said, "I bet you couldn't set a Guinness World Record for it." So I said, "Okay." So like most of us, I jumped into this project not knowing how it works, and so we made a 6-foot cup, started mixing it all up. Well, then later we found out that there's a lot of protocols that have to be done with Guinness World Records, so I didn't hit it for that one. But we did find out, how do we make the next one? And so that's when we did the lemonade, and that one we squeezed over 100,000 lemons. Chick-fil-A, I had to make it per Chick-fil-A recipe. So so we made that, and we said, what are we gonna do with the lemonade? So we put lemonade stands all over town and sold it, and raised $10,000 for a little lighthouse, a school for disabled children. And so we did that, and then a couple years later, some Providence in China beat me out. They didn't do a world's largest lemonade. They called it a soft drink, is what it was. So they made some weird blueberry and honey drink, whatever. And so then we decided to make a different one. So that's when we did the world's largest sweet tea. And yes, we did have to make a 9-foot tall fiberglass food grade cup to make this in. And so that's what we did.
How long was the process? Did it take, how many hours did it take, or minutes, to make the sweet tea and the lemonade?
Well, the lemonade, we had to squeeze all the lemons. So, just like everything, I kind of, my friends say, you're a perfect example of Tom Sawyer. Now, if you haven't read Tom Sawyer, so there's a story in Tom Sawyer about how he basically makes work look fun, and he convinces all of his friends to pay him to paint the fence. And so we said, okay, let's have some fun with it. So we knew that we had to squeeze all these cases of lemons. So we actually made a contest that all these teams can register, and whoever can squeeze the lemons the fastest win free Chick-fil-A for a year for their entire team. And so we set it up outside. We had a tent there and brought lemon juicers in. Apparently lemon juicers use a lot of power because we kept blowing all the breakers all the time. And so, but we made it to where, again, it was something remarkable. I have people that come to me every once in a while, like, man, I was on a team that we came and squeezed lemons, and we didn't win, but we had such a great time, and there was lemon juice everywhere, and seeds flying everywhere, and pulp in my hair, and but that's part of our job as leaders, right? Is to create opportunities for people to be inspired. And so we did that. Then it was just a matter of mixing it. So once we got all the lemon juice squeezed, then we just had to measure it out. And in 5-gallon increments, we kind of mixed it all together. Then we put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of sugar in there, and mixed just like the Chick-fil-A recipe, which is just lemon juice, sugar, and water, and we mixed it all together. And then, of course, somebody from Guinness had to come out, and they had to make sure it was done right. And it's funny because the guy came out and he said, "Yep, you'll get it." And I was like, "How do you know I'm going to hit it? I mean, you don't know me." And he said, you know, I've done this a long time, and when you show up at a place for a Guinness World Record, if they seem like it's put together very well, most likely it's going to hit. It's when you walk in and people are scrambling around and people are not organized. That's when generally it doesn't happen. And you know, it's kind of funny because that is how it is in business in our life. You know, those people who have those things put together are generally ones that are prepared for success. And those who are just, you know, flying by the seat of your pants, as fun as that is, that doesn't necessarily breed success.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great parallel there, and how that relates. So I've got to ask you to backtrack a little bit. I know you started with your store in the mall, but how did you get into Chick-fil-A number one? But then how do you become a multi-unit owner? Because most people have the understanding you can only own one Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. So for me, I was a team member at Woodland Hills Mall the day it opened in 1988, and I literally was not looking to move on with Chick-fil-A. Some things happened in my life where my younger sister had passed away, and I was helping support the family, and while I was in college, and the owner stepped in and he cared for me and said, "Hey, Arthur, I'm going to send you to a grand opening in another state. You know, you need to get your mind off everything at home." And so I went there, and they put me in a giant chicken suit called Doodles a Rooster, and so it included pantyhose. It was awesome. So I was the Doodles a Rooster for the weekend. But what I saw as I was looking through that beak, right? You know, I saw how Chick-fil-A cared about people, and I said, and I remember walking away going, "This is a company that I want to be involved with." And so I came back and started asking the questions of what does it take to become a Chick-fil-A operator. And the very first store that they offered me, I was in college at the time, finished out college. And you know, when they hired me for a store, and that happened to be a store called Eastland Mall in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was a horrible mall. I mean, it was bad, and volume was low, and nobody wanted that store. But this young punk, Arthur, will jump in there and take it. He has nothing else going. So I got in there and started realizing real quickly my creativity is one of the things that's going to help me not do business exactly like everybody else. So I went from that store to, as I progressed and the store would make money and start growing, Chick-fil-A presented me with other opportunities. I went from Eastland Mall to Promenade Mall to Woodland Hills Mall. And then they were building a freestanding store, or I kind of convinced them. I literally, you know, it was funny because we wanted a freestanding store right down the street, the first one in the area. And people were always asking me, you know, how come we don't have one here? When are you going to get one here? And Chick-fil-A Inc. is actually the one they make the decisions on all that. So I made a business card for this guy in real estate. His name was John. And so every time someone would ask, I'd be like, you know, I don't know. Here's his card. Why don't you call him? And he finally calls me one day and goes, are you handing out a business card of mine? And I was like, yes, I have a big stack of them. He goes, how do you have a big stack of my business cards? And I was like, oh, well, I made them. And I said, so I was just sick of people asking me about it. So I decided to give him your card and let him ask you. And so he said, you know, do you mind stopping doing that? And I said, tell you what, you come out and look, and I'll stop doing it. And so over time, they finally came out and looked, and they said, yes, there would be a good store here. So they built that store, and so I moved from the mall location over to that store. Now, over time, once I got into the store, I realized this is a lot easier than running a low-volume store. You know, this isn't as difficult as I thought. So when Chick-fil-A starts looking at you for a multi-unit, they're going to look at a number of factors. One is, do you have the leadership capability? Not everybody is wired to run two organizations. My organization over at the mall is entirely different than the one at the freestanding store. They have 27 employees. Their environment is more of a caring, if I can say that, more of a caring, nurturing environment, where the girl that's the manager there, she's like their mom. The store that I'm at currently right this second, this store is run entirely different. Our volume is a lot different. People are a lot different. It's just run two entirely different ways. But my job as a leader is to inspire them, to meet their needs, to remove obstacles, things like that. And so not all Chick-fil-A owners become multi-unit owners. There's some different factors. You can't own like one in one state and one in another state, or you can't own one on one side of the city and one on the other, unless it makes sense. And so for me, one of the reasons I got 2 stores was I'm marketing to the same people. They're right up the street from one another. I'm recruiting from the same schools. So there's a lot of factors in there that make it where it's simple for me to just take care of. And of course I have 6 kids, so I just make them work at all over the place. And the other day I told my wife it's time to start recruiting again, and she said, "No, this recruiting factory is done. So you're on your own." So.
No more kids. I love it. I love it. That's great. Well, hey, we're wrapping up on time. You are the busiest man that I know. You're the person that has taught me, of anything else, how to value time. And so in value of your time, we'll wrap this up. I do have to ask you the question that we ask everybody on the show, and you're going to nail this answer. What are you being intentional about today?
Yeah, so today what I'm being intentional about is my Mondays are literally open to close, and that is it started out early this morning. Believe it or not, I was on a phone call at 7 a.m. in Tel Aviv with a guy that's one of the prime ministers there, and it'll end at the end of the day with me building a Star Wars building for Tulsa POP Kids. And so the end of my day will be about actually more relaxing and being creative. So the middle of the day is going to be kind of more of a taking care of Chick-fil-A, but at the end of the day, that's where I relax. It's not just a lot of times when people relax, they're just like, hey, they just plop down in front of a TV. That's not what helps me relax. So I'm going to go use my creative juices tonight. So yeah.
I love it. Awesome. For those listening, they want you to come speak to their team or their convention about leadership, about culture. How do they find you?
ArthurGreeno.com. We actually made a website for it a few years ago. And so if there's anything we can do, my mantra is teach, inspire, and serve. So if there's anything I can do within those 3 realms, whether it's, just meet with you, or if you need me to come speak to a group, just let me know. When I do speak to groups, all that money goes right back into the organizations I support, whether it's Little Lighthouse, whether it's Tulsa POP Kids. It really just gets sunk right back in, because I make a living by killing chickens. So
love it. I love it. Arthur, thanks again so much for your time. Thanks to those of you that have tuned in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube at DreamIT Professional Events. And always remember, the bucket list life is a life worth living. Have a great day.